Coming up on a Skin Depth Convo.
I started in this industry in 1987. Now, I was in the retail aspect of cosmetics behind the counter, and they said, sorry, we do not let men in the cosmetic department. And I thought that was just really interesting. They said, and they put me in the luggage department, actually.
This is a show focused on educating and inspiring all those in the skincare and beauty industry. But it is also a show for those looking to improve themselves from the inside out. Renowned experts and hosts Metaxia and Francine aim to educate and inspire through their own experiences and are dedicated to enlightening and empowering enthusiasts and professionals in the realm of skincare and beauty. Join the conversation and the fun with the Skin Depth Convo. Welcome to a Skin Depth Convo. I'm Anna Kagarakis. Now today we're diving into a topic that's been sparking conversations across the industry, an increased presence of men in skincare. From male estheticians to skincare aficionados, men are carving out their space in an industry long dominated by women. And to talk more about the shift and how men are finding support and empowerment in the skincare world, we'd like to welcome in brand ambassador for Lira Clinical and longtime friend of the show. He's also a world-renowned makeup artist, Michael Moore, and the newest member of the Lira Clinical team, George Gallegos, the project manager of digital communications and education for Lira Clinical. Thank you guys both for joining us today.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, George.
Yeah, super excited. First podcast with the Lira team. So super excited to be part of this.
Well, we're going into it immediately, and we're very excited to have you with us. And I have to say, with Michael aboard, it's really cool, really nice to have the opportunity to have all of us on today. And Michael, you are such a wonderful ambassador for Lira. You've done so much for us, and we're very, very proud of what you've done for us and everything you do.
Well, it's
from the beginning.
Thank you. It's always been so much fun being part of your team and being part of the product, to be honest.
Actually, Michael, I found a picture of us in the beginning when we were launching Lira. We were on a bus, and that goes back a long time. So you are part of us and a brother to us, and thank you so much for being here. Yes.
Were we in the back of the bus, friend?
You guys are the troublemakers.
Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Yeah, Michael's been on the show before a few times here. We love having him on. So we've gotten to know you. We'll get to know you a little bit more again, just to kind of reintroduce you to people here. But we also want to get to know you, George, and we'd like to have you share your personal journey in the skincare and beauty industry and what really inspired you to get involved in the first place.
Yeah, I do kind of love talking about myself and kind of going through that journey. Sometimes I can overshare, so I will try not to overshare some stuff today, and we can save that for future podcasts. Can't give everything out. So, I think the way that I got into this industry, it was kind of by chance. It wasn't something that I was kind of going for. It wasn't a direction I was going for. And kind of this was kind of think back 10, 11 years ago, me just starting cosmetology school. And at the time, I was working at a jail. So I was in the mental health department at a jail as a kind of a technician. So I was there helping the psychiatrists, nurses. I was helping conduct classes, like hygiene classes for a lot of the inmates that were there. They just really needed an additional kind of approach. At the jail, we actually had to have these types of classes and offer them. So kind of that's what kind of sparked my interest more in kind of the beauty industry. And kind of I transitioned from working at a jail to going to beauty school. And so this was about 11 years ago. Went to beauty school, realized, I like doing hair, but I don't like doing hair for money, right? I like doing hair because it's creative. I don't want someone to tell me I want this permed mullet. I want to say, no, that is done. Let me do what I want to do to you. And you don't make money that way. So graduated cosmetology school. And then from there, I decided, I was like, I'm going to open up a business. This looks like something I can do. Once again, another fail. I am not a business owner at all. There's so much that goes behind a business that in my mind, I'm like, look at this. There's a space for rent at this mall. And that was the first mistake. Malls are definitely failing. And I think at that time you started to see it go downhill. But with that failure led me back to my route or my path to kind of be where I am today. So went back to school, decided to go back to school, but I went back to become an instructor. But instead of specializing my education in the cosmetology department, I decided to specialize in the aesthetic department because one of my mentors, her name is Julie, she was the aesthetic instructor at the time. And when I was in cosmetology school, we made a really good connection. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And she said, instead of just coming back to be an esthetician, come back to be an educator, but specialize in this area. So I will be able to teach you how to teach, but at the same time, you can learn the skills of aesthetics to kind of master that. So I did that for about 2 years. I wouldn't say it was a failure. It was definitely a learning experience where it's like, it was repetitive. It was like it was like almost the same students every 6 months. It was the same. It was like Groundhog's Day, right? You wake up teaching the same thing, go to bed, same students, wake up. And so I did that for quite a bit of time. Thought I was ready for another change. And so, there was someone else in the industry that was on this side of the industry that heard me lecture, heard me teach. And from there is where they were like, hey, we're opening up this training center. I want you to apply. And so applied for that. And ever since then, I think I've grown kind of in the aesthetic industry. I was able to kind of go into the marketing route, like the digital route. True to art, it's education is where I've been known quite a bit in our industry, especially director of education for a couple different brands. Now, of course, I do kind of, if you notice, I do get bored if I focus on one thing. So what kind of sparks me or keeps me interested is having my hand in multiple different areas of a business. So there's little side stories in between that, but we'll save those for another podcast as we go on. Those ones will be fun though. Some of those horror stories at school, right?
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you are very talented, and we have seen it now. We have seen that you're very, very talented, that you're able to see a lot more. You're able to see aesthetics in the front and the back, be able to deliver the message. So we are very happy that you're with us. And it's great to know that you are helping us quite a bit, especially on digital. And that's a huge thing because that is communicating the message to the world, taking that educational part and actually delivering the message. I think the similarities between Michael and George are they're communicators. And I have to say, we listen with Michael going back from the beginning almost. We listened to him because the words that he said were very valuable. And I'm saying this, I'm feeling the same thing with George. The communication is really important in this industry and keeping us in tuned and keeping us updated. So there's similarities is for me is communicators, great communicators in an industry that we want to elevate, and they elevate this industry because of their talents, both of them.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I do want to just kind of turn this around just a little bit. I just want to say how honored I am to be on here with three legends. Like, I know you mentioned how Michael has done a lot for all of you've done a lot for our industry. And I think that should be recognized as well, not just individually on there. So super honored for all three of you to be actually be on this podcast with y'all.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Well, George, Michael, I know we've had you on the show. We've talked about who you are and everything, but can you, for anybody who's listening to the show for the first time, give us a little bit of your background? I know we know you and we've seen how wonderful you are and what you have meant to the industry, but let people know a little bit about your background and what inspired you.
I was actually just in Phoenix this last weekend, which we're going to be talking about in a couple seconds. And it was interesting. This room, they had everybody stand up who was an esthetician. And I was the second longest person in the industry in that room. And that floored me, to be, first of all. But I've been in the industry for 37 years. And it was interesting to watch this industry just totally evolve. And nothing ever inspired me to get into this industry, but the industry kind of just picked me. And I think that's the best way you need to follow something is just follow your intuition when you're doing anything. But the other thing about this industry that I find so fascinating is how it always evolves, but then it never gets far from its base. Meaning that a lot of the same things that we talk about today are the same things we talked about in 1987, but they've evolved in product and technicians. They've tried the technical aspect of the product as well has evolved so much more. And hopefully it's becoming so much more health conscious as well for our clients and for the people going forward in the industry as well. Did that answer that for you?
I think that's great. I mean, I know that you've met some incredible people over the years that we've talked about in the past, like Oprah and some other wonderful, incredible people that you've worked with. And again, we can definitely want to touch up on that on another podcast. You can listen to all his wonderful stories because you've got some great ones. But let's talk about how historically this is a female dominated industry. The skincare and beauty industry is very female dominated. Before working with you guys, I actually worked in sports for years, and I was in the opposite in a male dominated industry. I was a female in that. And I know it's hard because you're trying to work your way in there and really almost prove yourself. But what challenges did both of you face as a man entering this field, and how did you overcome them? And how has this industry changed?
Yeah, I can start if you like on here. So, I've seen challenges, and I would say, like, myself personally, I really kind of never see any challenges that I come. They're not really challenges. I think they're stepping stones to kind of where you need to be and kind of make changes, make difference. So me personally, like with the mindset that I've always had, I never saw something as a challenge or something as is kind of stop. But I have seen other people who have had these challenges. If I'm just there to kind of give them advice or say what I think you should do. But the biggest thing is not to take some things personal is kind of the biggest thing, because not only do you have to reflect and change, but you also are expecting other people to kind of reflect and change like what they're thinking. So just even kind of compassionate and learning. And I know we are seeing quite a bit of men in the industry, and my whole entire goal is, instead of us just focusing on like diversity, we need inclusivity. So we need to be inclusive to everybody that wants to get in our industry, not just, and this kind of goes back to everybody. I think everybody has a home in the beauty industry because everybody has skin, and now with social media, everybody wants to take care of their skin. So like personal failures, there's not one that pops up or anything that I found as a roadblock, but I'm sure they're there. I probably just compartmentalize them, and they're hidden somewhere, and they might come out pretty soon. But right now, nothing just pops up in my mind.
What I've noticed in the industry is when we go to a trade show, I'm standing there trying to explain something to somebody, and Michael just walks over, hands something, and they listen. No matter what I do, Michael is able to get the message across, or they're actually mesmerized by his eyes or whatever's going on there, and they just listen. He doesn't even have to say much. I'm sitting there explaining what the product does and how it works, and Michael says, "This is what you need." And that's it. They say, "Yes, I need those. Give me a dozen." And I'm looking like with my mouth hanging open. Wow, Michael, that was easy for you. And I'm sitting here trying to explain the whole situation. So I do see there's a big difference in this industry. And I do believe it is growing even more and more women. I'm sorry, I feel like they listen to the men even more. And I don't know what it is, but they make a huge difference in this industry. And I think this is one of the reasons we're booming. And it's great to see this industry grow with men and women.
I'm going to give a side story here because there's really a perfect timing for it. Michael actually taught my youngest son, Theodore, how to tie a tie. And he came up to me, he goes, "Mom, he's such a gentleman. I hope I could be like that one day." And, I think what George is saying and what Michael's saying, it's not, we all have skin, but being very healthy, as far as our skin, and being really, projecting, like I said, that pride that you have when you feel good, you look good, it all comes together. But the confidence that you get when you come across, like you said, that perfect look that you feel that when you get up in the morning and it's a perfect day, it's all coming together. That's what they show us. And Michael, when I know I'm going to be around Michael, I do that extra so that I could come across, I see, I'm listening. And that extra that we're doing, and we're trying to show everyone in the industry that little extra, that perfection that we're trying to achieve. And it's a daily process. And I have to say, I mean, these stories are stories that we, remember for a long time. Sorry, I had to say that, Michael, but you were an impact for just not for me, but even for anyone that's around you.
You're,
What do you think, Middle?
You're too kind. Thank you. It was interesting in Phoenix again this weekend. I was talking a lot about this industry and about I started in this industry in 1987. Now, I was in the retail aspect of cosmetics behind the counter. And I remember I had been in the cosmetic counters for just a little bit of time, about 6 months. And I went and put my resume in, or my application, at Neiman Marcus. And they said, "Sorry, we do not let men in the cosmetic department." And I thought that was just really interesting.
Wow.
They said and they put me in the luggage department, actually. And so that was really kind of telling. And then when I went to aesthetic school, which was much later on in my career, and like I said, I've been in it for 37 years now, but I went to aesthetic school, and still the clients that you have to work on in aesthetic school would not let me do their waxing. So I find it interesting. But then on the opposite side of this is when I started in the cosmetic industry in 1987, every executive for every major cosmetic brand were men. And, we talk about how it's a women's dominated industry. I think what is so cool about this is it is an industry that focuses so much on women, and it has turned the pendulum around, if you will, in the aspect that women are now the heads of these companies that sell to women primarily. And I'm not saying, George, you and I know that we sell a lot to men, but with that being said, our prominent business does come from women still. And so we have to sell to women, but we have to talk to women. And I'm so excited with companies like Lira Clinical that was created by 4 women. It is in the women's dominated industry. And so I find it so interesting to be talking about this being that it's a women's dominated industry right now, Anna, So it was just
But
the
it's
opposite.
growing.
Tony. Very
Michael,
much
it's
so.
growing. More men are in this industry now, even as the customer. I mean, we're
Yes.
seeing more and more men
Yeah.
coming in for different treatments, not only in med spas for Botox and fillers and everything else, but also in aesthetics. They're seeing more and more because it's becoming normal for a man to come in now and get a treatment because it's needed. The same reasons. It's not just a beauty treatment. This is more for health, skin health, taking care of yourself, looking good. So I feel that there's a huge change in the market where men and women are needed very much in both sides, in the medical side, in the aesthetic side, because it's completely changed.
Right.
You mentioned a couple times also an event that you just attended. It's MECA, the Men's Estheticians Conference and Associates. Talk about the event, what it is, and what the mission of MECA is.
Well, it was created by this one gentleman. His name is Moto, and I cannot pronounce his last name, and I apologize about that. But Moto is a man who I personally think is going to change this industry in so many ways. He's only been an esthetician for 4 years, I believe he said, and he has already created this men's event 3 years ago. So this is the 3rd complete year, I believe, for this. And he really believes in about helping the brethren, of really making sure that there is a very cohesive place that men can go to learn about men, but also just learn about the industry and feel accepted a little bit differently than what it has been in the past. I have to say, there was about 250 to 300 people sitting in that room, and about 25% of them were men. And it really sparked so many different interesting conversations about the industry, and a very interesting camaraderie of learning from these men and what they have to go through on a daily basis on, as I call it, the battleground of women. Now, George, you've actually been at this event as well, right?
Yeah, so the very first one that he put together, I was definitely impressed. You kind of say, oh, he's only been an esthetician for a year, but the kind of the community that he brought together is extremely impressive, especially, not really having it. And that just shows the dedication that he is going to change. First year out of esthetician school, not really having like a book of business or knowing these people and just kind of going after them was super impressive. So like you were kind of mentioning, 25% you said this year was males, the rest were females, and I think it was only about 10%, I would say, were males that first year. And in my mind, when they said it was going to be this men's conference, I was like, oh, it's going to be just a lot of men that are going to be in here. But what was kind of amazing about it, it's actually more about just supporting and kind of thinking about it. And yeah, you're correct. So the very first year that it happened, I was a panelist. So what I really feel like I learn a lot is panelists, where there's multiple people chatting. And so with Moto, he put together multiple panels that day that really just sparked conversation. It wasn't more of one of those kind of learning environments where someone has a presentation and we're going next slide. It was really great because you were able to hear from multiple people, men in the industry. There was people on this side of the industry. I was part of that panel. And then he also had like spa owners or business owners that were men on the panel. So it was just kind of great to hear both sides. Typically since I've been on this side of the industry for quite a bit of time, that's really all I hear. I don't really get to hear it with at least 4 or 5 people at the same time of what they're struggling with, what they're going for. And I know one big thing that they said that they were struggling with there was more marketing that is geared towards the male clientele, where right now they're saying a lot of, we know like the majority of the clientele in the industry has been female dominated, but they were saying what they feel would actually help to kind of expand that is if we have, like males on some of these marketing images, on these posters, and really just kind of showing stuff like that. And that's what they felt was their biggest struggle at that time. So last couple of years, I think it's evolved. I think, Michael, you may have noticed that there's more male faces on marketing. I know you're on quite a bit of our marketing pieces, amazing marketing pieces.
Well, it was interesting, George. Once I got the table set up down in Phoenix, we had a little snafu about that. And thank you, Metaxia, for helping me out finding all of that stuff. But the interesting thing is there was a picture of me from an ad that we had done for a pro exfoliating cleanser. And then there was a couple pictures of men that you guys use as models. And people came up to the table and were like, oh, this is a men's line. I'm like, no, this is a men's event, okay? So why not market it towards the men? So I thought that was just so eye-opening. Like, okay, there's men on these pictures, so they think it's a men's line. And this was the women saying this to me, and they would actually walk on by. I'm like, okay, this is a skincare brand that is for people, and men have skin, women have skin, and we all have different issues with the skin. So let's talk about that. So I had to bring them in and slow them down a little bit. Like, no, Lira Clinical is not a men's skincare line. So I was trying to help you guys out there. And I do think you're seeing a lot more. The question was brought to me at the school or at the show about what makes a men's skincare line different than a women's skincare line. And I said, to be honest, in the skincare industry, where I started in the retail aspect with Clinique and Lancome Cosmetics, they both had men's skincare lines. And all they were doing is repackaging them, putting them into a gray package to make it seem more masculine. And it was the same exact products, but they sold it for almost 25% less than they were selling it to women. I think that's really eye-opening too.
Yeah, now that you kind of mentioned that, I know in our industry, there's been quite a bit of companies that did something similar. And me personally, these last couple of years, I've never seen any of them take off. They've all kind of just slowly dissipated. And I'm going to steal this from Metaxia. She says, we give the skin what the skin needs, right? That is her motto. And I completely believe that. Yes, marketing is a big deal. But like you said, Michael, the skin, everybody has skin, male, female, it's skin is gender neutral. So give the skin what it needs. And I'm still in that, Metaxia.
That's okay. It's okay. But I think that's so cool. What we're realizing is that it's not separate. We're all one. And both of you mentioned, we all have skin and we can adjust to what the skin needs. And this is what it is. It's not about this is this one side for this gender and the other. It's not. We all can share and we all can benefit and get the results from a good skincare line.
Mm-hmm. But that reminds me of a story, Michael, the Pro Firming Serum, which you like quite a bit. Yes. And I remember we had it in a different container when we first began. And you actually brought up the fact that we should change the container and make it a little more universal for both sexes. And we did. We listened to you. Yeah. And to this day, we have it in an airless container, and it sells quite a bit. But it is a little more universal because the way people approach a product is the way it looks, number one. And so we were able to use this more universally around the world.
Well, great. Thank you. And that is still one of my favorite products that you guys make. So love it.
It is a great product. It is an absolutely great product. And I do find it very interesting how men's skincare never really took off. But the idea is that you're right. We all have skin. It's just approaching it differently, right? So that's the key. I would have been really upset if I had found out that the men's skincare costs less than the same one that I was using. I would have been so upset by that. Like, wait a second, you're taking advantage of the fact that I'm willing to pay more here for this. But let's also talk about a little bit more about the event. Were there any stories that maybe stuck out to you, maybe some positive or negative stories about the industry and whether this shift is so important right now?
The room was filled with positivity all day long. One thing I find really quite fascinating about this is the governor of Arizona. I keep forgetting where Phoenix, what state it's in. The governor of Arizona actually proclaimed that day the men's event for skincare, which I think is really a great progressive aspect of it. But the other thing that was really brought out, and this is by educators all around the United States that were attending there, and some of them presenting, is just learning about the university and the universalness of skincare right now and about how they want to do it. And this is talking about estheticians and stuff, but how by state, they want to kind of even make it easier and easier for people to learn and the education that they want to give them. I found that to really be quite fascinating as well.
And I know,
Yeah.
thank you for taking the picture of that proclamation. They were trying to do what with that proclamation?
Well, I think it is number one, just really celebrating what has become so much stronger in the state of Arizona. But they're also realizing just how much business comes out of this industry every year. And I think I'm just going to quote the numbers that they have on this proclamation. And it said in 2021, the skincare industry was estimated to be worth over $100 billion. In 2020, it's estimated to be 177 billion. So that's a 77% increase in 5 years. That's unbelievable. Or a 75% increase in that time. And I just found it interesting. And only in 2022, it was worth 145 billion. So you can just see how quickly this industry is growing. And in less than 10 years, it's going to be a whole nother $100 billion industry that has taken so many years to get it to even to 100 billion.
Well, just also think about the idea, La, in our last podcast, we had talked about the idea how before women would be really private about when they went to get their skincare done, everything. It was like, you don't tell people about it now. Women are out there more saying, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But it seems like men are also shifting that way, where before it was very taboo to say you were getting skincare done, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now we're proud of it. Now we go there and we admit we love talking about our med spas and our treatments and things going on. And because people today do not have to talk about their age, we sit there and we just talk about how we feel. And Michael said something that was very important. It's healthy skin, being healthy inside out. It matters. And this is actually skin health. Taking care of your skin is something that we should all do. Prevention, sunscreen, all of this is very, very important. And it's for health purposes, not just for beauty, because when you look good, you feel good. That does help. But it does make a difference. Today's technology has changed. More and more of us are out there looking for what's new and what we can do just to maintain skin health.
It's important because Michael teaches every Tuesday and I watch it and I watch what he says. But even being an example, he had some surgery done, preventative. We're saving lives if we bring to our clients, our patients, something that they didn't realize. So its industry is becoming more of a wellness based industry, not just cosmetically, looking at younger, but really saving lives. And for Michael, you getting on and teaching us and showing us and sharing that, because it is, again, everyone could benefit from learning more about good skin health. So sharing stories and getting people to listen is really part of our educational concept with Lira, and sharing our experiences, good or bad, but sharing that it's real and it's a real person, real results, real life, and saving lives. And Michael, by you sharing your experience, I have to tell you again, people have come up to me, my God, I didn't realize I have to get checked. We even took our mother to a dermatologist because I showed her your video and she goes, I'm worried about this mole. And I took her yesterday, Fran and I took her yesterday. It was nothing. They cried it off, but you're bringing attention to things that we should look for in our skin health.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But the other thing, the obvious thing that we have to look at is we're living longer too. And I mean, the average life expectancy of an American back in, I think it was 1965 when I was born, was only 65 years old.
Wow.
And I'm 58 years old this year, soon to be 59. I'm like, 65 is not that much further away. So it's like, I can't imagine getting ready to get into that casket this quickly, right? So
No. You don't want to do it.
You don't want to say that.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is we are living longer. I mean, you even just look at what gyms are doing, and we're talking about the physicality of the faces, but look at how busy gyms are, and look at how old those people are at those gyms too, which I find so inspiring every single day as I get a day older every single day. And I look at them, I'm like, okay, I hope to God that I look like that at 75, or I have that inspiration at 75 at least, So why not take care of your skin? There was this amazing dermatologist here in Denver that I follow on Instagram, and he did a post today, and I found this absolutely fascinating. And we're talking about sunscreen. And one thing I think that Lira has done is you've created some of the best sunscreens on the market in the aesthetics world right now. And I'm not just saying that because I am a brand ambassador. I think it is so comprehensive with the ingredients that you guys are using and the technology that you're using and the textures is the other thing that I love. But anyway, they were showing this man who's a big, we here in Colorado, we have a lot of outdoor athletes, right? And so they were showing that he wears a t-shirt every single day of his life. This part of his body absolutely looked like baby skin. And this looked like it had been through a fire. It was just absolutely unbelievable what unprotected skin will look like in a very short amount of time. I just love that, and that's why I just love wearing my Lira Clinical SPF BB Bright, and I'm a big firm believer in that product, but I'm also a big firm believer in taking good care of your skin.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of go back to, I was trying to hold this thought, but I wanted to hear your story was fascinating, Michael. But talking about how, just going and showing people, right, of like you're going to the spa. And I think we have to really relate a lot of that to these influencers, social media. They're sharing, some people oversharing, but they're sharing that they're going to the spa. And it's almost like they're documenting their whole entire life. Like as soon as they get in the car, they get to the spa, they are having the camera above their face as they're getting the treatment, and they're sharing that. So, it's a whole different type of connection that I think people are starting to get used to, where, the connection wasn't as digital before. The connection, you only saw people when you went to these events, when you went to these shows. But now, just like that amount of information that's coming out is definitely helping to kind of expand the industry to males. Also, I feel like that has a big contributor to the growth of the industry.
So yeah, more like awareness has really led more to this shift, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not an I'm not a TikToker. I'm not any of those. It's not a goal of mine as well, but it's probably me being a millennial. But I know, nieces, nephews, they go and they just document their whole entire day. I'm like, you're sitting in math class, but people love it. It's like, people love watching that type of stuff. So, I think even when we're at trade shows, if I'm not at a trade show, I will even look at, brands feeds it feels like I'm there looking at their social media, their stories. And I think that is a big contributor to the shift in our industry.
No, it is, George, because real people, real results. I think the consumers today understand that they're being marketed to. So when they're able to identify with certain people and they show them the journey and they're able to see real results, it makes a big difference because now it's believable. It's not just somebody saying a beautiful picture saying, use this product. Now we're seeing the journey. We're seeing the correction in front of our eyes. And influencers all over the world are making a difference in this industry because now we're seeing what we can do, all of us. And it's personal. Like you said, you're able to get on your phone and be able to identify, look and see what happened, know that person. And so it has really changed this industry quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you can go to school to be an influencer, right? Isn't there college courses that are
sure,
influencer?
Is there?
I'm sure there are.
If not, we're going to make one, right?
I know.
Well, it's communication, and I think this is something we brought up earlier. Both of you are great communicators, and this is what we need to be able to do. I mean, I remember talking with Michael about health inside and out, talking about what we eat, what we do, drinking water. And George, you're bringing this communication out also to everybody, what we do, what we need to bring out. And it makes a big difference to get this information. We hear about it, but communicating it to the point we understand it and are able to apply it to our lives makes a difference. So we really do thank people for communicating all this information and we're able to put into our lives and practice it in our lives.
Well, one of the things I'm also thinking about is that, men and women, what makes somebody successful is really comes down to the person themselves and how hard they're willing to work and, and keep on learning in this industry. I mean, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts on kind of success, I think it's a little bit different. There's really no way to define success. Is success money? Is success a position? And for a lot of my career, I felt I was after success in a different way. So the mentality that has kind of shifted now, I'm seeing, success is being happy. Success is, being able to do what you love. Success is being able to share your gifts, not chasing something and once you get there, you see that that's not the success that you need. So, my kind of mentality on success is I think a little bit different, just the shift that I have. What is your vision of success, or what do you think success looks like for you all?
Waking up every day and enjoying what I'm doing and enjoying the people around me. And I think that makes a huge difference where you're not working, you're actually doing what you enjoy doing. and enjoying the people around you. So I think that makes a difference. You're right about that, George. It's not financial. It's really about enjoying waking up and knowing the people around you and enjoying everything that you're doing.
Yeah.
And for me, success is doing something better for this world. It's as small or as big it is, giving back to what we are blessed to have, being healthy and having relationships like this panel right here, having friends that are not just business friends, having family that are part of our business, but really being able to change it for a positive. And that you can't buy that. I've learned so much from every one of you. Because it's not about me, it's about a bigger vision. I mean, if we become self-centered, I think you lose the opportunity to know life, what it truly has to offer. How about you, Michael?
Well, I second on that one there, Metaxia. Success is so many different things. And when it ultimately comes down to it, when you're laying on your deathbed or whatever,
Yeah.
what memories are you going to come from? It's not
Yeah.
going to be if you became the vice president of a major cosmetic brand or anything. It's going to be how you feel about how you lived your life every single day, right?
At the start of it, I was like, I'm the only one that thinks like this, but it's great to hear that everybody has similar mindset. So that's great.
Yeah, I definitely think it also depends on where you are in your life, at what point in your life, because success when you're 20 versus when you're 40 versus when you're 60 and beyond,
Yes.
it changes. It completely changes at where you are in your life. Kind of switching gears back, I did want to ask you also about with more males in the industry growing, is there a difference between the number of men in the skincare and beauty industry in the United States versus globally?
I've gone to a few different places globally, and like Michael said earlier, like a lot of the men in the industry are kind of the higher ups, like the top is where you typically see, and as it kind of drips down is where it gets a lot more kind of female driven outside of, I would say, the US, just the places that I've been. And as far as here in the US, I would say it's regionally as well. There's kind of different pockets of the US is going to be completely different. So I can't really say for sure overall, just because of if you were to go to more of an urban area, highly populated, it's going to be different if you go to more of like a little small Midwest town. Still a great esthetician, still great. Everything's the same, but the clientele is going to be completely different, where one would have more males versus more females.
Well, Michael, where are you from originally? Where?
I was born and raised on a dairy farm in Michigan. The one thing that I realize, and I find this fascinating on so many levels, is I feel like in the United States, what I notice, and it's only when I go to conferences, there's a barometer that could be a little bit off there. But when you go to conferences, it seems like the Latin community in the United States becomes much more comfortable with being estheticians than if you're the average white guy for some reason. And I don't know why that is, but I find it absolutely fascinating and really quite refreshing in many ways. But I find that the aesthetics industry in the United States, with being men oriented, tends to be a little bit more ethnically diverse than what you see in the industry as a whole. And going to other countries and going globally, I was just recently down in Australia, and you did not find one man in the room except for the executives of companies. And I found that fascinating, where I don't think that the more British brands and the British reign countries tend to be much more male esthetician driven. And even in the cosmetic departments inside the department stores tend to still be very female driven, I feel.
Well, something, Michael, you said we're talking about men, but I've even noticed when Metaxia and I are traveling globally, they ask me where am I from ethnically, because I guess I have a different look, and I don't look
ethnically ambiguous.
Right.
Mannerisms.
So they will, maybe I look very, I guess, foreign. I don't know. And so they will ask me, oh, where are you from? And it's like, I'm from the US. And they go, you are? And I go, yes, I am. And they're surprised. So you're right. It's just the way you approach it. We all are one world. At the end of the day, men, women, everybody around the world, no matter what part of the world you're from, we're very, very similar. We're not different. When we start talking to people, male or female, anyway, we are all the same. We all have the same needs. We all have the same wants. We all have the same skin. And that's something that we need to bring forth to everyone, is because we all are similar and we all have the same common foundation.
Fran, I've been in the same thing. I get questioned on kind of my ethnicity all the time. A lot of times it turns into like a guessing game, and it just kind of goes on and on and on.
Yeah, then they ask you, are you this, are you that? And you say, well, guess.
Yeah.
And then at the end, yes, I'm from the U.S. Okay.
It's your accent, friend. It's your accent.
I know.
Yes.
I'm first generation.
I get it.
We get it. Yes.
And it could be the crown you often wear too, Francine.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's the liner, Michael. It's the liner that Michael keeps trying to get lighter and lighter on me. Told him, Michael, it's the Egyptian background. Okay.
Yeah. Well, what about estheticians versus cosmetology? Do you see more men as estheticians or cosmetologists?
So I've been out of the cosmetology world, I would say, for at least a good 8 years. And, go back 8 years, there was hardly any ever men in both programs, I would say. There, when I was teaching, I did teach for 2 years, the aesthetic department. I had 2 males that went through. So there was 2 in the 2 years that I was there. Whereas in the cosmetology department, there was at least a good 10, 15 that went through. But at the same time, we created, while I was in between those 2 years, a barber program. And it was completely opposite. In the barber program, it was maybe 1 female that was in there. The rest were going to be very male. They learned a lot of the same stuff. Like they would be cosmetologists and barbers would go through at least the first couple of months, same curriculum, except they would start to branch off. But it was kind of a unique learning experiences when you put this very females young in one room with males all in one room. That's where it got, there was just kind of a lot going on, learning a lot of the same stuff.
Now, we've talked about marketing towards men and everything, and also just marketing in general in the skincare industry. But what about approaching? We kind of touched up a little bit on how you approach men and women with skincare, but do you approach them differently when it comes to assessing their skin and figuring out what they need?
I don't. When I look at skin, I look at skin. I look at compromised skin. I look at oily skin. I look at clogged pores, all that kind of stuff. And my goal is to correct it. So I don't care if it's a man's face or a woman's face, I'm going to look at it. I was having at a friend's dinner party, a birthday party the other day at this really nice restaurant here in Denver. A good friend of mine was sitting there, and I won't mention their name and I had to call his wife afterwards, and I said, you need to get Alex in for a facial. He's got so many clogged pores on one side of his face that we need to get. And she was like, oh, I don't know if he'll do that. I'm like, he'll do it. If you just tell him to, he will do it. I guarantee it. So it's like, I didn't want to bring that up to Alex because I don't know him that well, but I know his wife really well. And I know that she'll get Alex in to get those clogged pores taken care of. And I don't know why I'm talking so much about death today, but I'll never forget my father. He passed away 12 years ago, I believe it was. So 13 years ago, I went home the year before he passed away, and I said, let's go and plan your funeral and all that kind of stuff, right, Dad? And I looked at him and said, Dad, you got these blackheads on your face. And then I noticed he had some on the back of his neck and everything as well. I said, I am not putting you into a casket with clogged pores. So my father, at the age of 83, had his very first facial.
Oh, that's a great story. That's a great story. And I remember we were with you back then that we had to do an event and you had to leave for that. Yeah. But what's really valuable, what you're saying, and I hope everybody listens, you don't camouflage your skin, you make it healthy. So whatever you do, you have a beautiful glow, a healthy glow. Again, we're not covering things up, we're enhancing them and perfecting them and getting them better. And even like you said, in a situation like your situation, you were worried about a goose canvas and you did it. Wow.
I do have to ask the men, don't you find that most men are usually a little more oilier than women, just a little bit more? And at the same time, a lot of men have really great skin because they shave and they're exfoliating at the same time, especially in that area. So I would say there's a few little differences that we have because their skin looks great when they're shaving because they're exfoliating on a daily basis and they look fantastic. And I would say, wouldn't you say there would be sometimes they have a little more oily tendencies than women? And I don't know if you want to put that towards testosterone or what you think. So I'm just wondering, because I've noticed that a lot of times when we're doing male protocols, what we try to do is use a little more of the cell cleanser and certain things so we can control the oils. So would you say that is something that we do see as a little bit of a difference?
I would definitely say, there's a huge difference, and not even kind of just a little. But once again, it's also like give the skin what the skin needs. And instead of just kind of putting this one kind of just overall kind of blanket statement, like this is the male skin, they're all going to be oily, they're all going to have great skin.
Right.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. With an increase in testosterone with male skin. But then this is where we also have to start to look at, anyone that's transitioning, either it's male to female, female to male, because there's also hormones that are going to be at play as well.
Yeah.
So even just kind of looking at that is, you're going to have to notice the differences in the skin. That way. And I know there was another question that you had asked originally, Anna, and I had a really good thing to say about it, but we're going to have to pause on that because I don't remember your question.
I remember now, too, which one it was, because I feel like we've been talking about some amazing topics here, too.
I remember. Okay, so you were kind of talking about possibly being treated different or treating skin different kind of when you go out to different places. So I would, like Michael, it's like a personal thing. Like me personally, I look at the skin, but I've been in different spas and I've been in different areas, whether I'm teaching, training, and they do treat male and female completely different whenever they are doing anything. If they have like a female that's coming to book a treatment and they only have a male esthetician, that spa, what I've noticed is they actually call the person who booked it and say, are you okay with a male being your esthetician? Where I've never noticed that if it was a female, like that extra call, like if a female's your esthetician, like the spa's not going to call and be like, hey, are you okay if your esthetician is female? But I've seen it on the opposite end, and I've seen it that way.
I was going to say, I would not have it, if somebody called me and said, you're going to have a male esthetician, I'd say, great. But then that's our mentality because we understand the difference. But you're right. Mm-hmm. More and more people need to see we have great experienced male estheticians out there. And my goal is I hope Mecca is able to get that information out there and open more and more doors for more men to go into aesthetics because we need them. Mm-hmm. We need them out there because men and women are both getting all these treatments. These treatments are not just cosmetic. And I mean, it's more than just putting makeup on. It's so much more today. This technology has changed. We're making so many differences, and we need men and women in this industry to show the difference for everyone.
I think this podcast is trying to say to everyone we're supporting this new concept. It's 4 years old, that you have quality people going there, that we are opening up more avenues to be aware of. So I have to say, I'm hoping that people will listen and actually go to these, the Mecca next year, because it is growing and there's a lot of quality information and quality people representing many great lines there. So,
and I do have to say, Michael, when you're holding the pro exfoliating cleanser, we sell more.
She's right. She's right.
I love that cleanser. My God, I love that cleanser.
Next time, Michael, you're gonna have one in there. And you're gonna have to do your influencer days and hold it up to the camera for it.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Love it.
But I do think the difference often, though, is with men and women in the aesthetics room, let's say, is there's different goals often. Here in the area that my store is in Cherry Creek in Denver, there's a few different men's spas here, but those men's spas cover everything from hair transplants, hair plugs, all that kind of stuff, to testosterone, HRT, hormone replacement therapy, to the point of waxing certain parts of the face and certain parts of the body that they wouldn't maybe wax on a woman per se. And so I do think that the goals of the men are very different than what women tend to focus at. And I think that is a big difference in the aesthetics world. Now, I personally have never really worked in the aesthetics room. I am a licensed esthetician, but I did learn all the different facials and stuff. And I knew that when I was at my educational cosmetology school, that men actually were very comfortable with having a facial with me, which was interesting. But females seem to be that way too. I don't know if either of them would be comfortable being waxed by a man or not. I'm not sure. And thank God I don't have to do that.
Well, something I also want to touch up on, I found this fascinating, was, as we're seeing a rise in male aesthetic treatments, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons reported a 482% increase in laser skin resurfacing procedures in men from 2000 to 2020, and a 182% increase in Botox injections. So Botox injections are the number one cosmetic procedure for men, with a 265,250 procedures administered in 2020 alone. And that's also COVID year right there. So why do you think, what do you think is the reason behind this trend? And what are some of the more popular trends you're seeing in men?
Go ahead, George.
Yeah, social media, and that wife might be like, I'm going to get her Botox. It's like, hey, come along with me, type. And so we're not just kind of influenced. We're influenced by who's around us, and so whoever's getting these treatments. I've also seen like couples pedicures, and pedicures is something that men would kind of stay away from, where it's really important to take care of your feet. And so I think literally just social media kind of bringing awareness, bringing attention to it, but also we have to owe it all to the women in these men's life. The women in these men's life are definitely helping to kind of calm them down. Don't be scared. Let's just come in here. Let's do it, guys. And I think that is definitely helping to increase the amount of Botox that people are having.
Mhm.
Well, I've noticed news anchors and politicians I watch on the news. I just check their forehead and see what's moving and what's not moving. And I can tell you, a lot of the men, they're really all being taken care of, and they look great. So
Mhm.
it is something that you're going to need, especially, with men. They're out in business. They're dealing with, their jobs, and they want to make sure they don't look old and tired. And it is important to be able to have that appearance and be out in the market globally and in their hometown or whatever, because it is important to look and feel good and have very positive attitude every day when you're going to work.
Right. And then you're also noticing, even in Hollywood, with some of the leading men that we all know, and I won't mention their names because I don't want to get a lawsuit or anything, but you can visually look at their faces and you see where their changes have happened
Yeah.
just in the last 2 years. And I'll tell you, I've got some people looking in California to find out where, name his name, got his neck done. And because I really am not into plastic surgery, but damn, his neck looks great.
No, I know we're analyzing them all. That's funny because we're looking at them and saying, gee, they look so good. And I think this is why more and more medical and regular aesthetics is growing so much, is because we're seeing such great results and we're seeing people looking good. And why not? Why wouldn't we want to look good and feel good?
We've learned so much with cosmetic procedures. When we first started, if we say a little story, the derma fillers were not the same and the Botox was not the same. It's advanced. The techniques have really taken off. So it's not overdone. It's being subtle, having a very healthy, youthful, like you said, not tired look. But the advancements and all this is just incredible. Like you said, Michael, you would see it before, where now it's more subtle. You say, wow, where did they get that done? Because it's really perfected in such a better way now than in 5 years previous or 10. I mean, it's fantastic when it's happening.
And
Yeah.
men are looking better. Haircuts are better. They're not just, regular haircut. They're styled. They look so much better. Their face looks better. The way they dress looks better. So I have to say there's a huge difference globally, and men are looking much better than ever.
Yeah, and I think marketing also, just in the recent years, I've seen Brotox parties, right?
Yeah.
Brotox,
Yeah.
so where that's going to happen. There's going to be like father-daughter nights where you bring your daughter and get treatments that, to the spa or to different places. And so marketing is huge. But I also want to talk about how, the marketing is huge, but how we are still kind of still putting on your spa menus like gentleman's facial or father's facial, teen facial, where we talked about how, the skincare line, if they had a men's line, didn't take off, but we're still utilizing a similar concept on the treatment menu. Well, as we're saying, skin is skin, but it's that marketing as well. People are marketing that gentleman's facial, and it could be exact same facial as 3 menu options above, but it's marketed different.
No, you're right, George, because we actually offered a gentleman facial just to make sure men are welcomed in, because there's still men that are shy to go in and get a treatment. So hopefully this is going to open the door and make them feel like, yes, there is something special for you. And the goal is to at least get them in, and then you can start doing all the same treatments that you're doing with women. But we need to get them in the door, and I'm glad to see that they are coming in.
Yeah, I do kind of want to tie that back to some changes that have been happening in the cosmetology world. So in the cosmetology world, there was always like a male menu and a female menu. So now a lot of the haircuts are going by length. And so it's not a gender menu. So
Nice.
if your hair is this length, it's going to cost this much, male or female. And so I like seeing a
Nice.
lot of that kind of
Nice.
change on there instead of really just targeting one audience. Because if you can have a man that has your medium length hair, a woman, the woman is going to get charged a lot more than what the man is for that haircut.
That's true. Hey, I've got two boys who have longer hair. My oldest likes to channel his inner Uncle Jesse from Full House, so he loves the longer style hair. So I do notice that now it's more going about length. Two last questions before we head out. So for George and Michael, what's your advice to any men that are coming into the industry for the first time?
Don't be afraid. Just go out there and make your mark in the industry. Do what you want to do with this industry and make it happen for yourself. A perfect example is Moto. This man moved here from a foreign country. 90% of the time I sat there and I have to look at him so deeply to try to figure out what he's saying. But his delivery of it is just unbelievable. So it's like, I'm so impressed with this man. I have no idea how old he is, so I was going to say young man, but he very impressive of what he's going to do in this industry.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I do follow Moto on social media and the whole Mecca that's on there. And so that someone had tagged him and it said, "We finally got Moto to smile." So exactly like you said, we're trying to read this guy. And so it was even like an almost type of smile.
Yeah.
And I think for me, just kind of any advice is connections, networking, go to these trade shows, go to these different places. Like, don't think your learning stops right there. But the biggest thing is like connection and networking with people. Don't be afraid to introduce yourself to these people that you feel is going to be your idol. But I think you have to have a really good network to pretty much succeed. You can't do it on your own. And I feel like our industry is very supportive of each other. And I think if you just continue to maintain those relationships, it's going to be really helpful, whatever your version of success is, to get you that direction.
And then, you're talking about networking, and a great place to do that is at Mecca, again, the Men's Estheticians Conference and Associates. Why is it important for men and women to attend this event? And what's the hope for the future for Mecca?
Well, if you think about somebody who might be an esthetician in, I don't know, Hutchinson, Kansas, or something like that, who's a male, he might not have a support group around him, but at least with a forum like Mecca, you have a support group. And you can get to know somebody who might live in Chicago or St. Louis or something like that. And you know that you can call them and say, "I got to just tell you the story," or "I got to talk to you about this skin problem that I had come in and I don't have anybody to talk to about it." And I think it's really about finding your network and your tribe, for a lack of other terms.
Yeah. And I feel like this event, it started the conversation. This isn't something that we had before. There wasn't a conversation that was happening. And kind of just having this Mecca event, it's we talk about how we're growing and how the industry is growing. We do need to continue to evolve, and having events like this, if you're the first and just starting that conversation, since that happened, now I go to trade shows and I do see there's more classes specific to men. Whereas early in my career, there was not a single one that was going to talk about different types of skin. They were all teaching the same thing. And so I do feel like, Moto and what he did with that conference, just starting that conversation, is just going to continue to grow the industry.
Wonderful. And if you want more information about Mecca, you can go to Mecca PHX, so MECAPHX.com. That's for Phoenix. So find out more information on there and definitely reach out to Michael and George, because they are wonderful proponents for this fantastic event. They can tell you all about it. And I appreciate both of you joining us today. A fantastic conversation with both of you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate everything you've done for the industry and for Lira. Thank you.
Thank you both.
My pleasure.
Yes, hopefully I didn't overshare. We got to save some of those stories, but I do appreciate y'all.
I love it. If you have any questions for Francine and Metaxia, remember to email us at skindepthconvo@liraclinical.com. That's skindepthconvo@liraclinical.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe on Apple or any of your other podcast platforms that you like to listen to. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Lira Clinical, where you'll also see the podcast there as well. So thank you all for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.
This podcast is brought to you by Lira Clinical and the award-winning Mystique Illuminating Beauty Oil. Mystique Beauty Oil's amazing skin-friendly hydration delivers potent antioxidants and anti-inflammatories with Lira Clinical's exclusive MassTech brightening technology. This luxury oil blend is infused with vitamin C for a clean, dry finish on the skin. Used by itself or add to your favorite hydrator, Beauty Oil delivers your glow and go look. Contact your local Lira retailer for additional information at liraclinical.com.